Myoho Renge Kyo. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Hi, how are you? I hope you're in good health, secure. Language, 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 language. Tathagata. Depending on whose translation you read, and amongst a whole host of translations, words like Tathagata, Buddha, Bhagavat, on and on and on, they're generally listed as epithets of Shakyamuni, or more to the academic point, Shakyamuni Buddha, or just the Buddha. I think that's just lazy. And I think that if you study enough Buddhism over time, as I think that I have for many decades, even though the translations kind of fluff along in these different epithets, in other words, a word meant to embody a state of mind, an entity that is samsaric but not samsaric, or saha but not samsaric, or of the physical world but not the physical world. Come on. So I've included these terms in Buddhism Reference, in, as you'll recognize, Buddhism Reference. And today we're on the term Tathagata, and I hope that I can lend some clarity to this. And some people will take exception, but then I offer or ask those people, offer me something better. Because it has become, over my decades of study, quite evident, quite obvious what these different terms stand for. Tathagata. Shakyamuni Buddha used this term often to name the experience of the suchness or nature of Buddha or Buddha-ness. Big clue. Roundly misunderstood as an epithet for Shakyamuni himself, duh. What Shakyamuni experienced as his attainment, enlightenment, of Buddha, right? Not a saha physical being, but a sentient mind clarity, which is what we're all wanting to achieve. The confusion of Shakyamuni the man with Shakyamuni the enlightened being remains still until this day. Like language that says Shakyamuni was the original Buddha. There is no original Buddha. In fact, if you're looking for origins of Buddha, this is when you come upon the word Tathagata. See, in order, and you'll understand this if you study any Buddhism, from early teachings to the Lotus, to Nichiren. In order for something to be, there has to be the potential for it to be. My gosh, that's so complicated. Right? In order for something to be, to exist, to instantiate, to manifest, doesn't it make sense that the potential for it to manifest must be there first? In order to be a Bob, a Ted, an Alice, a Mohammed, I shouldn't use that word because it immediately gets associated with religion. I know, Pradeep, a Juan, a Pedro, je ne sais quoi, Jean-Louis, all these names, these different, in order for there to be a human being, a verb, a process of instantiations of moment to moment human, there must be the potential for that in order for it to instantiate. I mean, this is, I'm going to remind you, a very fundamental concept in Buddhism. In other words, things don't just pop into existence in and of themselves, right? We hear this all the time in different ways, in different language, right? There is no self-existing thing. Nothing is permanent. Nothing is... How many times have you heard it said in different words? Language struggles with this idea, and yet it's so obvious. In order for there to be something, there has to be the potential for that thing. That always comes first. Right? Things don't just go, I'm a thing. No. The thing must come from potential for thing. Then thing can claim that potential and be it. That's the engine of life. I can't make it any more simple than that. And because the thing, the being, instantiates from potential, it inculcates the tendencies and conditions surrounding that potential, the freight train of karma, engine of life, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. That potential for a sentient mind to come into existence and perceive this process, therefore, has to be predated or pre-existent in its non-existence, as potential to exist. The potential to be enlightened, the potential to experience Buddha is Tathagata. Tathagata isn't Buddha. Tathagata isn't Shakyamuni. Tathagata is the potential for Buddha-ness. Do you understand that if you get that relationship, then the statement that we all have, the potential for Buddha-ness, is blindingly obvious? Because that potential presages the very existence of Buddha. Mind, Buddha-ness, clarity, enlightenment. That potential is in the entire cosmos. Pre-cosmos, the potential for enlightenment is there. For example, the following from the Encyclopedia of Buddhism demonstrates this confusion well enough. The confusion over this is everywhere in Buddhism, in academia, in translators, in biases. It's simply not understood. If you read Vasubandhu and his description of the skandhas, the first 5 or 6 consciousnesses, you can see it. Hell, if you really study the Nidana and go to those early teachers, as Julius Evola did in the Doctrine of Awakening, great book. He studied the Pali Canon, the early teachings, and he went into the Nidana, and there it is. You can see it, but it's not in the language. You have to kind of decipher it. Tathagata, or thus gone one. Thus come one is another one. What is that? Think about that now for a moment. What's the thus come one or thus gone one? All of that. It's a process, isn't it? From potential into manifestation, the Buddha-ness is either something new that comes, Tathagata-ness instantiated as Buddha, or the very instantiation of Buddha relinquishes samsara to its proper physical place, no longer attached, nirvana. Both are looking at the same transition from potential to existence, from potential to being. Oh man, those terms start to make sense, don't they? As long as you understand the basic concept. The thus gone one is a common epithet for the Buddha Shakyamuni. Here we go again. There's the confusion. We'll just throw all these words in one sentence, we'll look smart. In the sutras, the Buddha uses this term to refer both to himself and to the Buddhas of the past, because he's talking about the discovery, the transition, the instantiation of potential. But he didn't use those words 3,000 years ago. Oops. Well, they wouldn't have understood anyway. It's for us to understand now, right? Namo Myo Renge Kyo. Etymology, according to the encyclopedia. The Sanskrit term Tathagata can be parsed into two different ways. One, Tathagata, meaning one who is thus gone, as I was just explaining. Or two, Athagata, meaning one who has thus come. Due to these two possible interpretations of the Sanskrit term, the translations into different languages are varied. Amen. The Chinese translation, Rulai, means thus come one. The Tibetan translation, Debi's, can't read Tibetan, reflects the ambiguity of the Sanskrit term and can mean either one thus gone or one who has thus come. It's about the engine of life. They didn't know to call it the engine of life. That's my term, engine of life. I think it's a lot easier to understand. At least for us it is in this era. Pali commentaries typically provide 8 possible meanings for Tathagata. See next section. 8 meanings according to Buddhaghosa. In the Sumangalasini, Buddhaghosa provides 8 different denotations for the term Tathagata. He who has arrived in such fashion, i.e., who has worked his way upwards to perfection for the world's good in the same fashion as all previous Buddhas. It's not wrong, it's just a lot of words that make the mind wander. What are you trying to say? Number 2, he who walked in such a fashion, he who walked in such a fashion. He who at birth took the 7 equal steps in the same fashion as all previous Buddhas, or B, he who in the same way as all previous Buddhas went his way to Buddhahood through the 4 jhanas and the paths. This is a lot of self-aggrandizing rhetoric about we're doing it right, these are all the steps, these are the rules, right? That's early Buddhist teachings is all about that. At that time it was necessary, but not to us now. Now it's just confounding and confusing. And third, he who by the path of knowledge has come at the real essential of things. Aren't these all saying the same thing, really? He who has won truth. Well, that would be realization, wouldn't it? It would be Buddhahood. And what is Buddhahood? A manifestation of the potential for Buddhahood, which the potential we know is called Tathagata. But when you experience it, it's not Tathagata, it's Buddhahood. Because that's a very specific in instantiation as a human being with a sentient mind, incorporating and seeing, experiencing the potential in the Saha world. The potential Tathagata, the experiencing Buddhahood. Right? Water has the potential to be wet. When you splash it on yourself, you experience wetness. It's no longer potential, it's real. It's experienced. There's a transition. 4 or 5, he who has discerned the truth. Okay. And 6, he who declares the truth. And 7, he whose words and deeds accord. You do what you say what you do. 8th, the great physician whose medicine is all potent. How many times has Shakyamuni spoken of himself as a doctor? He has a parable about it, right? Several, actually. The good medicine of the Daimoku. An alternate contemporary interpretation. Some contemporary interpretations emphasize the meaning of Tathagata as thusness or suchness. That's closer. And hence interpret Tathagata to mean either the one who has gone to suchness or the one who has arrived at suchness, which is just another way of saying you've instantiated your potential. You've manifested Buddhahood from its potential, Tathagata, you've manifested through your mind, through your body, through your freight train of karma, Buddha. Buddha is an experience of your potential of Tathagatahood. Yeah? All right. I hope that made some sense. I hope that's useful. If nothing else, not to understand the words so much, but the engine of life, the process that we're all experiencing. Take care of your health. Keep your practice strong. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Savor it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.